Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. I brought the Kindle, not because I read a book in the last day. I have actually been reading the second book of the Inspector Gamache series. Whatever. It's whatever. Similarly, I have similar complaints about this as I did the first book, but I'm still enjoying it. That's not the point. If you read the title to this video, the answer is, the short answer is yes. The question, if you didn't read the title, is do I read too fast? Somebody commented recently that they're somewhat jealous of my reading speed. But here's the thing. I have, according to Goodreads, I have read, I believe, 32 titles so far this year. We are a little bit over 3 months into it, so that means 10 books a month. That's more than 2 books a week, and that's a lot. That's a lot of book to read. And in my younger years, okay, the reason I asked the question is I attempted to tell you guys about a book last week, not from this past week's reads, but when I did the reading video from last week, I wanted to talk about, I did a summary. Here's the video, here's the books that I read. And one of those books was, the heck was it even called? See, this is where I'm coming from. Oh, it was the Charlie Parker book, Every Dead Thing, right? Yeah. And I couldn't remember the book, like really at all at first. When I read the title, I was like, I don't really remember this book. And then when I read the synopsis, I went, oh yeah, that's this book. And then I still couldn't remember the book. It was just like gone. I've already moved on. I'm reading something else. And so I recognized, okay, this is about reading, but really it's about my memory, right? As I've aged, I have found it less likely that I will retain information long term. When I was younger, I could read a book like that and then I could recite it to you, maybe not word for word, but I could give you a very detailed synopsis, chapter by chapter, if you asked of what happened in the book. I can't do that anymore. And I'm wondering, is it because I'm just kind of reading for pleasure and I'm not reading for some sort of other gratification? I could still give you all the major plot points of the Lord of the Rings series, even though I haven't actually read the books in probably 10 years or more, would be the last time I read them. But when I was younger, I used to read them regularly. It's one of the few book series that I've read multiple times. The Hobbit, I could give you a very detailed synopsis of The Hobbit, no problem. And because I read that book probably 20 times when I was younger. But a book that I read 2 weeks ago I was really struggling with trying to remember details. And now that I'm looking through the list, I looked through the list earlier today of the books that I've read so far this year. And for most of them, I could give you broad overviews of what happened, but the details would be really fuzzy. And I don't know if that's just a product of the speed at which I'm consuming the material and I'm not allowing myself to be absorbed by it. But at the same time, I am. Like, when I'm reading, I'm not distracted. It's part of the reasons why I like reading, is because in general, I'm a distractible person. Like, everything distracts me. But when I'm reading, I am able to just be like, all right, I'm reading. And I will read. And when I notice a distraction pop up, I will go pin it and then immediately switch focus back to reading. And then when I get to a logical break, whether it's a time jump break or a chapter break, I can address those pinned items. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but honestly, that's kind of what's happening in my brain. Like, in my brain, I'm able to take those little ideas that pop up as I'm reading and put them to the side, and they just kind of hang out there. And then when I get to the end of the chapter, I'll go look. And oftentimes, I will find that I have become so reabsorbed into the book that when I get to the end of the chapter, those ideas are fuzzy enough that maybe I don't remember them, or I only remember one of them when I had multiples or whatever. So I'm fully engaged in the reading. And in the moment, the book that I'm reading, like right now, I'm reading this A Fatal Grace. It's the second book in Inspector Gamache. I'm on chapter, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8. I could tell you what's happened so far. I could tell you all the characters. I could tell you what's going on. But by the time I finish this book and start the next one, I will let this just gets flushed. And to be honest, that's probably the better way to live my life. Instead of being the know-it-all that I've read the thing and I know the thing, I just let it go. Like I've absorbed it, I've enjoyed it, I've gone on the journey. Let it go. Let's make room for new memories, because I think there's just maybe that's part of it. I'm at an age where from this point forward it's all downhill, and I have to reserve room for memories that are worth holding on to, and maybe these books are not worth holding on to. I don't know. I'm really curious about it, because it's definitely something that I've recognized within the last probably 10-ish years, that my retention is not nearly as good as it used to be. And I'm assuming it's age related, not reading speed related, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just plowing through these things too fast, and that if I slow down and be a little bit more methodical or whatever, I could retain a little. But also, do I want to? For the most part, I'm reading books that are just kind of trashy, fun, romp kind of novels, and they're not really. They're not really written with the intention of they become my next big greatest thing. I don't think, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the writer thought this is the next greatest thing. And in some cases, these writers have hugely successful careers from this, so it has become the next greatest thing for them. But for me, they're just kind of like fun little romps. I don't remember every TV show I've ever watched, obviously. I don't, of course, I don't really watch TV. But there's things like, say Rick and Morty. I could tell you a whole lot about it. Maybe it's just because it connected with me in some way, shape, or form. And these books, some of these books are not connecting with me, and so I just let them go. I don't know. I'm kind of in my head about it, but also not. I'm also not like beat up over it. I'm going to continue reading at the pace that I read. I am a fast reader. The books that I'm reading in, say this book I think has an average reading speed of like 6 hours. I'll probably read it in like 5. That's not wildly fast, but somebody like Malia would probably take 6 to 10 hours to read it. Whatever. She'll take her time and just kind of meander through it and enjoy the journey. I definitely read faster than a lot of people, just naturally. But I don't know if that's a part of the problem. Maybe it's a multifaceted problem. Maybe it's age, but also, it's both things. I don't know. That's what I'm curious about. This ties into another conversation about retention that I want to have, but I think I'm going to keep it separate, and maybe have that conversation next week or something, because it might upset some people. I don't know. I think most people who enjoy this medium are pretty open. What do you think? Those of us in our 40s and 50s, 60s, however old you are, do you retain information as well as you did in your youth? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is usurper. It is a noun meaning a person who seizes a position of power through illegal means, force, or deception. A usurper, in the guise of a benefactor, is the enemy that we are now to encounter and overcome. William Leggett, an American poet and fiction writer. Usurper. U-S-U-R-P-E-R. Okay. That's another one of those, feel like that's a pretty common word.